It's hard to pinpoint the exact moment when you know something is wrong in your relationship. For me, it started small. Little gut feelings, weird behaviors that didn't quite sit right. But I brushed off because I'd been conditioned to believe that questioning him meant I was the problem. It's funny. People always say, trust your gut. But no one tells you how much you'll second-guess yourself when it's someone you love. And I did love him. I'm not ashamed to admit that. Even if, looking back now, I was nothing but a safety net, a doormat, someone he knew wouldn't leave no matter how hard he pushed. It started with the phone thing. He'd sleep with it in his pocket, which I thought was odd, but I told myself maybe I was overthinking it. He was always paranoid about privacy, said he just didn't want me scrolling through his stuff. I bought that lie for a while, even when he stopped using his phone around me altogether. He wouldn't check a text, wouldn't pull up Google Maps, wouldn't even glance at it unless he thought I wasn't looking. My best friend called it a red flag, but I kept making excuses. Maybe he's stressed. Maybe he's embarrassed about something silly and doesn't want to tell me. Maybe. Then one night, his phone slipped out of his pocket while he slept. I woke up because it brushed against my leg. I stared at it for a few minutes, just sitting there in the dark. I was this close to putting it on the charger, honestly. That's what I told myself I was doing. But when I picked it up, the screen lit up. And there they were. Notifications. Message after message from a dating app I didn't even know existed. My stomach dropped. It's hard to describe that feeling. It's like getting punched in the chest while your brain screams, "You knew. You knew." I stood there, looking at him snoring peacefully, and I wanted to slap him awake. I wanted to throw the phone at his face and scream, "Who the hell do you think you are?" But I didn't. Instead, I hatched a plan. Revenge is a funny thing. Some people think it's petty, but for me, it felt like taking back control. I was done being the fool. I downloaded the same app, used photos of a friend he'd never met. A beautiful, blue-eyed blonde who looked exactly like the kind of woman he'd fall for. I asked her for permission, of course, and she was more than happy to play along. She even sent me a few sexy photos that didn't fully show her face. She's a real one, let me tell you. Within hours, we matched. Of course we did. I knew his type better than anyone. And so we started chatting. Flirting, joking, building up the fantasy. It was disturbingly easy to get him on the hook. He told me he was single, living with a roommate, trying to get back on his feet. Single. Imagine that. I wanted to laugh and cry at the same time. We talked for about a week. He poured his charm into that fake persona like he was auditioning for the role of a lifetime. Sweet words, sexual innuendos, plans for our future together. I suggested we meet up, and he was all over it. I played him like a fiddle, asked him to book a hotel room, something special so we could, celebrate. Here's where it gets even more pathetic. This man, this unemployed man who had spent the past year draining my savings, agreed without hesitation. I'd paid for everything the entire time we were together. Rent for the one-bedroom apartment, utilities, groceries, my student loans. Every dollar I had went into keeping us afloat while he sat on his ass, promising he'd get a job someday. And he had the audacity, the absolute nerve, to ask me for $50 right before he left to meet this fake woman. He said his mom's birthday was coming up and he wanted to buy her something nice. I knew he was lying, but at this point I was past caring. I handed him the money just to see the smile on his face. That smile still haunts me, if I'm being honest. How smug he looked, how sure he was that he had me wrapped around his finger. That weekend, he left. He kissed me goodbye, told me he was heading to his mom's house, and that he might stay the night. I smiled, told him to have a great time, and the second he was gone, I packed up all of his stuff. Every shirt, every video game, every stupid piece of junk he'd left lying around. I put it all outside by the dumpster. I live in a busy city, so it didn't last long. Then I changed the locks. Meanwhile, on the dating app, I strung him along. Told him I was running late, that I wanted to look perfect for him. I sent him more photos, thanks to my friend. Even convinced him to send me a video of him jerking off in the hotel room. At this point, I was laughing so hard I could barely breathe. He thought he was about to have the night of his life. Instead, at 1 a.m., I sent him a final message, a picture of his belongings, outside being picked through by someone who clearly needed them more than he ever did. I told him to enjoy his stay at the hotel. Then I blocked his number and went to bed. On Monday, I came home from work to find him outside my door. He was a mess, red-faced, ugly, crying, pleading with me to let him in. He said he was homeless, that he had nowhere to go, that I was all he had. The rage in me bubbled up, but I stayed calm. I knew him well enough to know that the begging wouldn't last long. And sure enough, when I didn't budge, he turned angry. He screamed at me, pounded on the door, said I'd ruined his life. He threatened me, my pets, my sanity. I called the police and filed a restraining order that night. It turns out, after everything, he ended up moving a few hours away to live with the only family who would take him in. I heard he got a job, finally. Sometimes, late at night, I think about all the ways I let him take advantage of me. I think about how much money I lost, how much of my confidence he chipped away, how blind I was to the reality of who he was. But then I remember that night, how he sat alone in a hotel room, believing he was about to meet the woman of his dreams. And I smile. Petty? Maybe. But it felt like justice to me. Now I'm trying to move on. I'm rebuilding my savings, paying off debt, and reminding myself that I'm worth so much more than what he gave me. But here's what I keep wondering. Do you think I went too far? Sometimes I feel a little guilty, but then I remember everything he put me through. I don't know. Maybe revenge really is a dish best served cold. What do you think? Would you have done the same thing?
So here's the thing. I'm not the kind of guy who snoops through his wife's phone. I swear, it's just never been our thing. We've been together 10 years, married for 7, and we've always prided ourselves on trusting each other. I mean, sure, we've had our bumps. Show me a couple that hasn't. There's been a lie or two before, nothing major, but enough to make me stop and think. Still, you forgive, right? You move on. And I thought we had, until last Thursday. I was sitting on the couch after dinner, scrolling through my own phone, when my wife handed me hers. She wanted me to help her download something, a game for the kids or something stupid like that. I don't even remember. That's not the point. The point is that while I was on her Google Play Store, I noticed a new app she'd downloaded. I couldn't place the name. I remember pausing for a second like, what's that? But I didn't say anything. I didn't ask. I'm not the jealous type, or at least I didn't think I was. But here's the kicker. The next day, I couldn't stop thinking about it. I left for work like usual, dropped the kids at school on the way, kissed her goodbye. The usual routine, but all day long something gnawed at me. I don't know why it got under my skin so bad, but it did. That app was bothering me. I couldn't let it go. I didn't even remember the name of it, just that it didn't look familiar. So when I got home Friday night, I waited until she was busy. The kids were doing homework, she was in the shower, and I grabbed her phone again. Yeah, I know. That's not the most respectful move, but like I said, something was eating at me. I opened the Play Store and checked her app history. It was empty. At first, I thought maybe I was looking in the wrong place. I sat there for a minute, staring at the screen, clicking back and forth. No recent searches, it said. No recent installs. It was completely wiped clean. Now, I'm not dumb. I know enough about phones to know you have to delete your history for it to look like that. It doesn't just disappear. And here's the thing. I hadn't said a single word to her about noticing the app. So why would she delete it? Why clear her entire search history? I sat there feeling like my gut had dropped to the floor. Over the weekend, I tried to play it cool. Maybe it was nothing. Maybe I'm paranoid. We spent most of the weekend together as a family anyway. A trip to Target, soccer practice, pizza night with the kids. I kept telling myself to let it go, but I couldn't. Sunday night rolled around, and I checked again. Same story. Empty. I didn't say anything, but by this point, I was climbing the walls inside. You know that feeling where you just know something's off? Like your whole body is telling you that something doesn't add up? That was me. Monday morning, it started all over again. I left for work, dropped the kids off, kissed her goodbye, same old routine. But by the time I got home that evening, the Play Store history had been cleared again, completely wiped out, 3 times in 4 days. I lost it. I'm not proud of it. I know I probably shouldn't have confronted her the way I did, angry, frustrated, and already convinced she was hiding something. But I asked her flat out why her app history was being deleted. She looked at me like I was crazy, swore up and down she didn't touch it, said she wouldn't even know how to delete it. I mean, I know she knows how to. I've seen her delete browser history before when she didn't want me to see how much online shopping she'd done. But now she's acting like I'm paranoid, telling me I'm imagining things and that she'd never do anything to hurt me. She swore on everything that she didn't delete it. Here's what really makes me feel insane. The suggested apps that pop up when I check her Play Store. Tinder, Bumble, Hinge, all the classic dating apps. Now let me tell you, those don't just show up for no reason. I'm not saying I've never seen an ad for them on my own phone, but they're always buried under all the other crap I look at. On hers, though, front and center. It's like the phone knows, like it's taunting me. Am I crazy? I'm trying to convince myself it's just an algorithm thing, but at the same time, how did we get here? How did I go from 10 years of trust to feeling like a lunatic, second-guessing every little thing? I can't stop thinking about it. I can't shake the feeling that she's hiding something from me. I've been sleeping on the couch since Monday. I can't even look at her without feeling sick to my stomach. She's been trying to talk to me, but every time I hear her telling me again that she wouldn't delete anything and that she doesn't even know what I'm talking about, I want to scream. Because I know what I saw. Twice, I want to believe her. I really do. I want to believe I'm overreacting, that I'm being paranoid, that there's some reasonable explanation for all this. But my gut keeps telling me I'm not. We've built so much together, a home, a family, a life, and now I'm sitting here questioning if I even know who she is anymore. So what do? Am I crazy? Am I reading too much into this? Or is this a red flag the size of Texas? Would you trust her? Because right now, I don't know if I can. I never thought my life would play out like the plot of a bad soap opera, but here we are. Let me start at the beginning, back when I thought I had it all together. I was married to a woman I loved, or at least thought I did, with 2 kids and a pretty standard suburban life. It wasn't perfect, but whose life is? Then I found out my wife was having an affair. Not just any affair. She was seeing her boss, her high-income, arrogant executive boss. I'll spare you the gory details of how I found out, but let's just say when you see credit card receipts for fancy dinners and weekend hotel getaways that don't include you, things start to add up pretty fast. My world shattered in a single moment, and I'll never forget the nausea that came with realizing everything I thought I knew was a lie. I confronted her, of course. She denied it at first, because cheaters always do, but eventually the truth came out. And once it did, she didn't even seem to feel guilty. That's what stung the most. She justified it all by saying she deserved to be happy, that I was too boring, or some other nonsense excuse people like to tell themselves when they blow up their own lives. It was the kind of betrayal that sticks with you, burns deep. I spent nights lying awake, replaying every conversation, every moment, wondering how long she had been laughing at me behind my back. But here's where things get interesting. After she left, I knew her affair partner's wife needed to know. I wasn't about to sit around and let this man get away with destroying my marriage while his poor wife lived in the dark. So I told her. I didn't know what to expect, but she didn't waste a single moment. She filed for divorce, and let me tell you, she took him to the cleaners. It was brutal. Lawyers, court battles, the works. I watched it unfold from the sidelines, and I won't lie. There was something deeply satisfying about seeing him get what he deserved. His ex-wife and I started talking after that. At first, it was all about commiseration. We bonded over our mutual hatred of the people who blew up our families. We'd vent, trade stories, and honestly, we found a weird kind of comfort in each other's company. One day, as a joke, we started talking about how much it would mess with our exes' heads if we became a couple. I mean, it was petty, but when you're hurting like that, pettiness feels like justice. So we did it. We went on fake dates, and it worked. My ex-wife and her ex-husband were absolutely losing it. I'd get rage-filled voicemails, emails that reeked of jealousy, you name it. She was getting the same treatment. I'll never forget the two of us sitting on my back porch, listening to their angry rants and laughing until tears ran down our faces. At first, it was just a joke, just two people pretending. But somewhere along the way, the pretending stopped feeling fake. Turns out, we actually liked each other. I mean, really liked each other. She wasn't just some angry ex-wife to me anymore. She was smart, funny, kind, and had this fierce determination that I admired. She'd been through the same hell I had, but instead of letting it break her, she'd come out stronger. We kept seeing each other, and before I knew it, we were dating for real. Fast forward a year, and we decided to move in together. Between the two of us, we had 5 kids, my 2 and her 3, and somehow, it just worked. We built this new life out of the ashes of our old ones. It wasn't perfect. Blending families never is. But the kids adjusted faster than I thought they would. They were happy, we were happy, and it was like life had thrown us both a second chance. Here's the kicker. My ex-wife now has to pay child support to me. And her ex-husband, Mr. Executive, has to pay alimony and child support to his ex-wife. The irony of it all? The two of us, me and his ex, are financially stable because of the very people who tried to ruin our lives. It's almost poetic. We don't plan on getting married, because why mess with what works? A cohabitation agreement gives us all the legal security we need, and it keeps things simple. But it doesn't end there. When my ex-wife found out we were living together, she lost it. Like, completely unhinged. She left me a voicemail so full of threats and rage that we ended up taking it to court and getting a protective order against her. That protective order? It got back to her workplace. HR and her boss's boss had a nice little chat with her, and let's just say it put her career in jeopardy. I didn't plan for that to happen, but it felt like karma was finally stepping in to handle the mess she created. The best part? My ex-wife and her affair partner aren't even together anymore. They blew up 2 marriages, destroyed their families, and for what? Nothing. Meanwhile, here I am, living a life I never expected with someone I actually love, surrounded by kids who are thriving. I still think about how bizarre it all is. Life has a strange way of working out, doesn't it? But here's the thing. Sometimes I wonder if I'm too petty. I mean, I can't lie. There's a part of me that enjoys how much this situation infuriates my ex and her ex. I know it shouldn't matter, and maybe I should just let it go, but after everything they put us through, is it really so wrong to feel a little satisfaction? So what do you think? Am I wrong for relishing this bit of karma, or would you do the same in my shoes? Be honest.